Start with the two epigraphs on after the dedication. One is from Aeschylus, who's a Greek dramatist. His play, The Libation Bearers. Okay, and the other one is from William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania, More Fruits of Solitude. With the torment bred in the race, the grinding scream of death, and the stroke that hits the vein, the hemorrhage none can staunch, the grief, the curse no man can bear. But there is a cure in the house, and not outside it, no, not from others, but from them, their bloody strife. We sing to you, dark gods beneath the earth. Now hear, you blissful powers underground, answer the call, send help, bless the children, give them triumph now. The Libation Bearers is a play about the two children of Agamemnon, Orestes and... what's his sister's name? And I'm drawing a blank.
It starts with a G, doesn't it?
No. You're thinking of Iphigenia, who Agamemnon already killed. And Orestes is seeking peace because he killed his mother in that play. He killed his mother because she killed his father, her husband. She killed his father, her husband, because he killed her daughter in order to go off on the Trojan War, because the god said, you have to sacrifice your child to us before we'll give you any good luck and stuff. So Orestes is fleeing from what are called the Furies, okay, who are gods of the underworld who chase people down, who commit certain crimes that essentially cannot be forgiven. And one of those crimes that cannot be forgiven is patricide, killing of a father, or matricide, or mother. Okay, and so the title is Libation Bearers because Orestes is trying to offer a libation or a sacrifice to appease the gods, essentially. Doesn't work. Eventually, Athena has to get involved and has to set up the Greek justice system. Okay. The only reason she includes that in here is for really that final line. Bless the children. Give them triumph now. Why? Because it is the children who will triumph from here. It's not the Order of the Phoenix. Okay. It is essentially Dumbledore's army. Then in the next passage, death is but crossing the world as friends do the seas. They live in one another still, for they must needs be present, that love and live in that which is omnipresent. In this divine glass they see face to face. Their converse is free as well as pure. This is the comfort of friends, that though they may be said to die, yet their friendship and society are, in the best sense, ever present, because immortal. Okay? What is she talking about? Or excuse me, what is Penn talking about? Death is but crossing the world as friends do the seas. Well, what happens when friends cross the seas? They go away?
They come back.
They may come back. Do people come back from death? Generally speaking, no. Okay? So what does he mean? Well, they live in one another still. What did Dumbledore tell Harry at the end of Book 3? Prongs did ride again tonight. You found your father where? In you, Harry. Okay? They must needs be present that love and live in that which is omnipresent. Well, what is that which is omnipresent? Omnipresent. Eternally present. Always present. It's love. It's love. There is no past to love. Love, to take the title of a Bond film, never dies. Okay? In this divine glass, they see face to face. Okay? That is an allusion to Corinthians. Corinthians 14, I think it is, 1 Corinthians 14, where St. Paul writes, now we see through a glass darkly. What does that mean? It means our lenses are covered with grime and filth and garbage. And so we say we don't see well. We don't see properly. We don't see clearly. But then, he's talking about after the resurrection, we will see perfectly. In fact, we will see so perfectly, we will know as we are known. That is, we will know perfectly. Okay? And their conversation is pure and free. This is the comfort of friends, that though they may be said to die, yet their friendship and society are, in the best sense, ever present. Why? Because immortal. Because their friendship never ends. And you can go to the very end, almost, or you can go to the chapter of the Forbidden Forest. This is why Lily and James show up. This is why, I almost said Harry and Ron. This is why Remus and Sirius show up. Because the friendship has never actually ended. Yeah, Remus and Sirius are dead. They're really dead. They're dead. They're not coming back dead. Okay? But what Rowling means by including this is to add some consolation to her readers. I sent a message off to my London Harry Potter students the other day, and I've been getting all kinds of responses because I had a whole bunch of questions about, what's your favorite book, blah, blah, blah. And people are saying, oh, I don't like Order of the Phoenix because Sirius dies. It's like, grow up and get with it. Why? Death happens. Nice little bumper sticker. Death happens. We saw it last week in Boston. We saw it in West Texas. We see it every day if we have eyes to see. Death happens. Well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean just some homeless guy got murdered someplace, because that homeless guy had a family. Might not have known it, might have been estranged from them. Okay? Little 8-year-old Richard Martin had a family, standing there at the Boston Marathon cheering on his mother, who was running. He died. What's the point? The point is, that's not all. Okay? So, having said that, look at chapter 1. And I'm going to skip a bunch. Go to page 5, around page 5. It's 13 in the British version. They are now in Malfoy Manor, and they're talking with Voldemort. And Voldemort is speaking. And he says, as long as our friend Thickness is not discovered before he has converted the rest. He's talking about converting the other members of the Ministry of Magic, the other workers of the Ministry of Magic. And who's he talking about? What's this guy Thickness's first name? Pious. Pious, Thickness. And what does Voldemort says? This guy's job is to convert. Do you think she pulls that language out of thin air? It's all religious language. Okay? You don't convert somebody from capitalism to Marxism. They change their opinion. They change their mind. You convert somebody when it is a religious conversion or experience. Okay? So that's what Voldemort's talking about. It is a change, an entirely change or shift in worldview. But what does he really mean? What's Pious Thickness doing? He's putting people under the Imperious Curse. That's what he's doing. Talk about conversion. Taking away their will. Okay? So they keep talking, and we see and hear that the Malfoys apparently don't really like what is going on. And then Voldemort addresses Snape around. And we hear, Severus, help me. Yes. And you, Draco? Draco shakes his head. No, you wouldn't know her, would you? Because you wouldn't take that class. Charity Burbage, who taught what? Muggle Studies. Okay. One of the Death Eaters spits on the floor. Severus, please, please. And what do we see? Voldemort kills her. Why? She's not needed. And because Nagini is hungry. Okay. And what does Severus Snape do? Nothing. Nothing. Okay. So, chapter 2, In Memoriam. And we get the long passage that is from the article, the obituary, about Albus Dumbledore by Elphias Doge. Okay. And we get Harry, reading it, and around page 18 or so, we hear this for the first time. He had thought he knew Dumbledore quite well. But ever since reading this obituary, he'd been forced to recognize he'd barely known him at all. Never once had he imagined Dumbledore's childhood or youth. Whose fault is that? Dumbledore's? Harry's. Why did Harry never imagine him? Okay, he never saw him as a young man. Not quite true. He did see Dumbledore as a younger man in the Pensive when he had auburn hair. Now his hair is white. Okay. Why else? What in the previous 6 books did Harry do to Dumbledore? Okay, what else? He put him on a pedestal. He made Dumbledore into his quote-unquote little god. That little thing that he thought, as long as he's around, nothing bad can ever happen. Okay? It was as though he'd sprung into being as Harry had known him, venerable and silver-haired and old. Venerable. What does that mean? Able to be venerated, like worship. Does Dumbledore ever seek anybody's worship? No, not at all. The idea of a teenage Dumbledore was simply odd, like trying to imagine a stupid Hermione or a friendly Blast-ended Scroot. And Harry goes on thinking he never thought to ask Dumbledore about his past. Again, whose fault is that? Didn't Harry have plenty of opportunities in the previous book to ask Dumbledore all kinds of questions? I mean, they were away and off from school for a lot of times. Okay? No, they'd always discussed Harry, always discussed Harry's past, Harry's future, Harry's plans. And Harry thinks back, Dumbledore, what do you see when you look in the mirror? I see myself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. Like that's the only thing he lacks to be satisfied. Harry pulls the obituary out. And then we see another headline. Dumbledore, the truth at last. Harry rips the paper open and reads from Rita Skeeter. Okay? Or reads what Rita Skeeter has to say about Dumbledore. It's a long passage. And we go to around page 23 or so. And what happens? Revulsion and fury rose in him like vomit. I mean, reading this about Dumbledore turns his stomach. And he starts moving blindly around the room like he lacks focus. He lacks direction. Harry sat down hard on the bed, last page of the chapter. The broken bit of mirror danced away from him. He picked it up, turned it over in his fingers, thinking of Dumbledore. A flash of brightest blue. Harry froze, his cut finger slipping on the jagged edge of the mirror again. He'd imagined he must have done. Nah, he couldn't have been real. Okay. Chapter 3, the Dursleys departing. The folks arrive to take Harry away, and Harry explains to Uncle Vernon, around page 33, 32 to 34, when Uncle Vernon, kind of decides he's staying put. Harry says these accidents aren't accidents. Crashes and explosions, derailments, whatever else. It's Voldemort. I've told you this over and over again. Even the fogs are caused by Dementors. You have to leave. Vernon, okay. And then finally Vernon, he's like, but I can't. What about my work? What about Dudley's school? I don't suppose those things matter to a bunch of layabout with Harry. Don't you understand? They will torture and kill you like they did my parents. Dudley, Dad, I'm going with these order people. Dudley, for the first time in your life, you're talking sense. Why is Dudley willing to go?
Because he doesn't want to be tortured.
He's smart. He's not a fool like Vernon is. Vernon still doesn't put up with nonsense or any strangeness. Katie?
This is related to Dudley. I read that.
You read where?
I don't remember where, but I'm pretty sure it was J.K. Rowling. She said that when Dudley was confronted by the Dementors, he saw himself as he really is. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think so. And we'll get to that in a moment. Okay? But what else, what is Harry showing for the Dursleys? I mean, think about this. Should he really care whether or not they're tortured? Well, at least Vernon. Okay? He's showing love for them. He doesn't want them tortured and such. So, the others arrive, and round 31 or 32, Hestia Jones tells Daedalus, maybe we should wait outside so that Harry can say his farewells. Harry, no need to. Vernon, well, goodbye then, boy. Aunt Petunia, ready, diddy, and they get ready to go. And Dudley just stops dead in his tracks. I don't understand. What don't you understand, Popkin? Why isn't he coming? What? Why isn't he coming too? Well, he doesn't want to, do you, boy? Harry, not in the slightest, no. Well, see, there you go. Dudley doesn't move. Now what? Okay. And says, you know where your nephew's going. Well, certainly we know. Off with your lot. Off with some of our lot? Page 38 in the British one.
Yeah, and goes into 40.
It's supposed to be a page behind. Okay, 39 and 40. Hestia Jones, Harry, it doesn't matter. Because Hestia Jones takes that off with some of our lot. Harry, it doesn't matter, really. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? Don't these people realize what you've been through, what danger you are in? The unique position. Harry, no, they don't. They think I'm a waste of time. I don't think you're a waste of time. If Harry had not seen Dudley's lips move, he might not have believed it. As it was, he stared at Dudley for several seconds before accepting it must have been his cousin who had spoken. For one thing, Dudley turned red. Harry was embarrassed and astonished himself. Thanks, Dudley. You saved my life. Not really. It was your soul, the Dementor. Okay? And then you have this long passage where Harry thinks about what had happened that morning and what has happened in the intervening month that he's been back. They'd had virtually no contact. And it now dawned on Harry, however, that the cup of cold tea on which he had trodden that morning might not have been a booby trap at all. Although rather touched, he was nevertheless quite relieved that Dudley appeared to have exhausted his ability to express his feelings. So if it wasn't a booby trap, what was the cup of cold tea?
Peace offering gesture.
Peace offering gesture. Dudley showing love, because probably when the cup of tea was put there, it wasn't cold. This isn't iced tea. They don't have iced tea in England.
What?
When my family first came, Katie will tell you this, when my family first came to London with me, they got there early in the morning and I had to walk them all around because you have to stay awake until late at night so that when you sleep and you don't have jet lag. And first thing a couple of them said was, oh, I want some tea. So we went to, I think it was McDonald's, and they got tea. Steaming hot tea. And it was like 80 degrees already. So Aunt Petunia burst into tears. Oh, such a lovely boy. Say thank you. Hestia, you didn't say thank you. Harry, yeah, but coming from Dudley, that's like I love you. Why is this so important? And why, from what I've been told, do they leave it out of the films? And a whole bunch of students are saying that, the 7th and 8th films are their absolute favorites. So, boy, are they going to get it from me when we get to London.
It's kind of an, I want to say an ameliorating sort of gesture that kind of heals the rift.
Okay, yeah.
Harry.
Keegan?
Well, they've kind of like hated each other their whole lives, and now they're actually liking each other, loving each other. So, showing that they both can come back and realize I'm gonna come together.
Showing everything Hagrid said in book 2 is wrong. And everything Dumbledore said in book 2 is correct. It doesn't matter how you're born. It matters what you make of yourself. In other words, Dudley changes. Okay? He changes. This is Dudley's transformation. This is Dudley's, if you want to use the term, redemption. Okay?
I was actually going to say, it kind of seems to me because, a little bit in the book they kind of alluded to the fact that there is a possibility of Voldemort being redeemed. And it seems like she's showing redemption on a smaller scale.
Yeah. She's showing how it occurs. Notice, did Dudley say, Harry, I love you? No. What does he say? You're not a waste of space. Okay? And Harry interprets that. He's not interpreting that for us. He's interpreting that for himself. He's telling Hestia, you don't understand. For Dudley to say what he said, that is like Dudley saying, I love you. That's how Harry takes Dudley's statement. Okay?
I was so mad that they left that out. That was probably the biggest scene that I was just so upset about.
Why did they leave it out? Was there a reason or
I think they filmed it and then it didn't make it into the final editing.
They have it on the deleted scenes. They talk about it too.
Okay? So, Uncle Vernon, are we going or not? Why? It's getting a little too mushy for him. Okay? And they get ready to leave, and Dudley releases himself from his mother's clutches, walks back to Harry, puts out his hand. Harry, blimey, Dudley. Did the Dementors blow a different personality into you? Dunno. See you, Harry. Yeah, maybe. Take care, Big D. Notice Dudley doesn't say goodbye. He says, see you. What's the difference? Goodbye can be final. See you later is not final. Okay? What about Harry's response?
Maybe.
Okay, what else? Look at his last words to Dudley.
In the 5th book, he used Big D as a taunt.
In the 5th book, he used Big D as a taunt. Is he taunting Dudley here? No, what's he doing? It's pretty important.
Showing manners.
Showing manners.
Using it with affection.
Using it with affection. He's part of Dudley's gang. That's what he's doing. by saying Big D. It's a sign of respect, too. Okay? That's what Dudley's friends all call him. Harry is saying, I'm in your circle, Dudley. I'm one of your friends now. Okay? And then he goes. I don't think that can be slighted. What we see there is we see someone who has hated Harry all of Harry's life change. Really change. Okay? You get to the very last chapter, not the idiotic epilogue, but the real last chapter. And what do we see? We see an opportunity for change. And it's not taken. Not because it can't be taken. Because he doesn't choose to take it. Okay? So, the 7 Potters. Notice, Harry does not want to do the Polyjuice Potion. Why not?
It puts the other 6 Potters in danger.
Puts everybody else in danger. Well, isn't everybody else already in danger to begin with? I mean, first of all, they're there. So, yes.
Except for the non-Weasleys, who's caught with
Yeah. Okay. So, Harry goes off with Hagrid. Why? Because that's how he arrived. Okay? I've done this before. Book 1, Book 7, Book 2, Book 6, Book 3, Book 4, essentially. We see 1 have parallels with 7. Okay? Well, what's going to happen almost immediately? So, Book 1, Harry arrives with Hagrid, and then he meets Hagrid. Hagrid takes him to Elop's Owl Emporium, and what does he get? Hedwig.
Oh,
He leaves with Hagrid, and what happens? Boom! Hedwig's, puff of feathers, like, when Shrek and Fiona sing, just, okay? Or when Fiona sings, sorry. So, Hedwig becomes a stuffed thing. So, they take off, and the Death Eaters descend, and how long is this? You've got from 257, 5 pages. How long is it in the film?
so long.
I've not seen it, so I don't know. I imagine it's more than 5 minutes. Okay, because cinematically I think of this and think, ooh,
They do
this.
stupid stuff. It's absolutely nothing to do with what happened in the scene. Like, why are they driving on the highway?
Yeah, no comment. Okay, so what do we see? We see Harry. I have no idea what page this is on. Probably, hold on, I'll get it. 43, so 54, 55, somewhere probably 56, 57. Harry sees Stan Shunpike, and he does Expelliarmus. 59. Okay? And suddenly we hear, that's him. It's the real one. How do they know?
It's a signature spell.
He might as well have put Harry Potter. Okay? And we hear Voldemort yell, Avada, as the pain from, last page, as the pain from Harry's scar forced his eyes shut as one acted of its own accord. He felt it, notice the language here, because it's going to change a couple times in the novel. He felt it drag his hand. It pulls his hand. Round like some great magnet, saw a spurt of golden fire through his half-closed eyelids, heard a crack, a scream of fury, the remaining Death Eater yelled, Voldemort, no! Your wand, Sullivan, give me your wand! And then Harry disappears. Next chapter, Fallen Warrior. Hagrid?
Yeah, that's what I thought when I first read it.
When you first read it, notice the first word of the chapter, Hagrid. You think, no, can't be, not Hagrid, please, God, no. No, but it does start with an H, Hedwig. Actually, it's not either of them, okay? Hagrid's just a big dark mass, like Aragog lying there dead, you know. Hagrid, it's fine, son. The wife's seeing to him now. How are you feeling? Anything else broken? You know, et cetera, et cetera. And it's Ted Tonks, Nymphodora's dad. Hagrid asks Harry, where's Hedwig? And he says she got hit. Okay. As he cries. And we're going to skip a bunch again. So we must be probably, 70, 72? Harry's now talking with Lupin. 73?
He's talking to him on 17.
Okay, this is Lupin. Voldemort caught up with you? What happened? How did you escape? 70, okay. And Harry talks about using the disarming spell on Stan Shunpike, and then we're told Lupin looked aghast. Harry, the time for disarming is past. These people are trying to capture and kill you. At least stun if you aren't prepared to kill. That page 70 also?
Yes.
Okay. Harry, we're hundreds of feet up. Stan's not himself. If I stunned him and he'd fallen, he'd have died the same as if I'd used Avada Kedavra. Notice his logic. He'd have been dead. I may as well have just Avada Kedavra'd him to begin with. Expelliarmus saved me from Voldemort 2 years ago. Okay? Yes, Harry. Great number of Death Eaters witnessed that happening. Forgive me, but it was very unusual then, under imminent threat of death. Okay? It's his unusual skill, his uncommon skill. Harry, okay, so you think I should have killed Stan Shunpike? Well, no, of course not. Okay, Remus, then give me another option. Okay, if I don't Avada Kedavra him, and I don't stun him, then what do? Turn him into a bird? Expelliarmus is a useful spell, Harry, but the Death Eaters seem to think it is your signature move. I urge you not to let it become so. Harry, I won't blast people out of my way just because they're there. Now, think about that language for a minute. Hold on. Just because they're there.
And it's justified means.
Just
Peter Pettigrew.
Or, yeah, Quidditch World Cup.
keep going. I mean, yeah, true with Cedric and all that. Where else? Bingo. It's more the fact that he exists. Snape was just there. And James and Sirius turn on him. Okay? Harry, I won't blast people out of my way simply because they're there. Right? That's Voldemort's job. And I think you can extrapolate anyone who wants to behave like Voldemort. Yes, and I am suggesting what James and Sirius did when they were 16 years old was like Voldemort. Like it how? It didn't show any love. It didn't show any compassion. They didn't seem to recognize that Snape had a right to exist also. Okay? And Lupin just shuts up. We hear, will George be okay? Okay. Because I skipped. No, I didn't. I'm going to come up to that.
Professor?
Yes.
Do you think Lupin made the connection when Harry said that? Do you think Lupin thought he was talking about him and Snape? Because it's, when it says he shut up.
I don't know. I really don't know. Possibly. We see others come in. Kingsley comes in. And we find out George lost an ear. Today is the feast day of St. George, by the way.
He's holy.
He's holy. And we're going to talk about that. Hermione, he what? Lupin, Snape's work. Okay. And Mrs. Weasley says, I can't make it grow back. Not when it's been removed by dark magic, but it could have been so much worse. He's alive. Harry, yeah, thank God. Now, it was in the previous book that we first heard someone say, thank God. You're going to hear it repeatedly in this book. They never used the word God until the 6th book. It's like it suddenly drops into the vocabulary. Okay? Ginny, thank goodness. And Mrs. Weasley goes and sits by George. How do you feel, Georgie? George reaches up and feels the side of his head. Saint-like. Fred, what's wrong with him? His beautifully twisted, practical Joker mind is, affected. Saint-like. You see, I'm holy. Holy, Fred. Get it? Pathetic. With the whole wide world of ear-related humor, you go for holy. Name one ear joke. Ear. Okay? The whole wide world of ear-related humor, maybe in Fred and George Weasley's world. Okay? Why is this significant? Because I think it is. So it could be just my weird twisted sense. George has his ear blown off. And he says he's holy. Get it? Holy. Before that, he says he's saint-like. All right? Why is it significant? What has George become for Harry?
He, instead of thinking about himself, makes everyone else feel better.
Okay, what else?
A martyr?
Bingo. He's a martyr. He's not a martyr who dies. A martyr simply means a witness. Okay? Well, what did George do? He took Harry's place. Can't be a greater witness than that. All right? He takes Harry's place. Who else is a martyr? Mad-Eye, Hedwig. Shh. Comes later. Make sure you bring your Kleenexes. Okay? So, others come in. Bill, for example, says Ron was great, wonderful, stunned one of the Death Eaters. Hermione, oh, you did? Like she's real surprised. Okay? Runs up to Ron. Lupin asks how George is, and they talk about, he's lost his ear and such. And then we're told a Thestral had just soared into sight, landed a few feet from them. Bill and Fleur slid from its back, windswept but unhurt. Bill, thank God, thank God. Nobody speaks. Mad-Eye Moody, dead. Harry felt as though something inside him was falling through the earth, leaving him forever. Like a friend crossing the sea, not to return. Well, how close had Harry and Mad-Eye gotten? We don't know. We're never told. Other than that, he has some interactions with Mad-Eye. But this makes it sound like they had established a bond of some sort. All right? So, they keep talking about Mad-Eye. And Mundungus's disappearance. And Bill says, I know what you're thinking. This is 76 or 77? It just really gets way off. 78, 9, so plus 8.
I know what you're thinking is the last paragraph.
Yeah, okay. And Bill says, I wondered that too on the way back here because they seem to be, but Mundungus can't have betrayed us. They didn't know there would be 7 Harrys. That confused them. Besides, it was Mundungus who suggested that little bit of skullduggery. Tonks, you know who acted exactly as Mad-Eye expected him to. Mad-Eye said he'd expect the real Harry to be with the toughest, most skilled Aurors. He chased Mad-Eye first, and when Mundungus gave them away, he switched to Kingsley. Fleur, yes, and that is all very good, but still it does not explain how they knew we were coming. Moving Harry tonight, does it? Somebody must have been careless. Somebody let slip the date to an outsider. It is the only explanation for them knowing the date, but not the whole plan. Fleur assumes there's a spy. Harry, no. He stops it in its tracks. No. If somebody made a mistake and let something slip, I know they didn't mean to do it. We've got to trust each other. Okay. Harry needs to listen to himself. We've got to trust each other. I trust all of you. I don't think anyone in this room would ever sell me to Voldemort. Dead silence. Why? Because nobody wants to challenge Harry. Not because of the moral superiority of Harry, because nobody wants to go, Harry, open your eyes. It's not how the real world works. Harry, you think I'm a fool? He says to Lupin, no, I think you're like James, who would have regarded it as the height of dishonor to mistrust his friends. One of whom betrayed him. Kind of like, okay, Lupin, you take the,
Do we ever find out how Voldemort knew?
Snape, isn't it?
Snape
Yeah.
suggested it to Mundungus.
Yeah, Snape suggested it.
Okay.
So, Bill and Kingsley need to go do something. Tonks and Fleur, where are you going? Lupin, Mad-Eye's body. We need to recover it. Why? He's dead.
He's got that creepy eyeball.
He's got the creepy eyeball. That could be useful. Take it in your pocket and pull it out. Is that it?
It's also a sign of respect.
Out of respect. Okay. Remember the passage in The Lord of the Rings when they're talking with Saruman at the Tower of Orthanc? And Aylmer steps up and tells Theoden, remember Theodred at the fords? Remember Hama at Helm's Deep? Because at the fords, and to Hama at Helm's Deep. After they died, then they did what? They mutilated their bodies. That shouldn't ought to have been done. Okay? Mrs. Weasley, can it wait? Bill, wait? No. Not unless you'd rather the Death Eaters took it. Well, what do we know Voldemort is now using? In fairy. Dead bodies that are charmed. Okay? So no, they've got to take Moody's body and properly bury it. How is it properly buried? We're not told. But we read later on, which we'll talk about. His eye.
Oh,
And what does Harry do?
calls across.
Puts a cross on the tree over where he buries the eye. Why? Because Moody's a closet secret Christian? Sits around, reading the Bible when he's not cursing trash cans and,
Constant.
Yeah, constant vigilance, To Satan I send you. Okay? So Harry's like, I need to leave. You're not going to leave, Harry. We just lost Moody to save you. Mad-Eye wouldn't, Harry, I know. He felt beleaguered and blackmailed. Did they think he did not know what they'd done for him? Didn't they understand it was precisely for that reason he wanted to go now? So that nobody else would suffer on his behalf? There's the walking into the Forbidden Forest. It's time to stop the dying. Okay? And then he talks about how his wand acted of his own accord. And Hermione goes, kind of channeling Umbridge. That's impossible, Harry. You mean you did magic without meaning to? Harry, no. The bike was falling. I couldn't have told you where Voldemort was, but my wand, now notice what it says. My wand spun in my hand, like he's holding his wand like this, and the wand goes, yip. Previously, it's, all right? Now he says, my wand spun in my hand, and found him, shot a spell at him. Wasn't even a spell I recognized. I've never made gold flames appear before. Did he ever make any gold appear before?
The apologies portion.
Okay. Well, with his wand. Ollivanders. He did this, and red and gold sparks shot out. Mr. Weasley, oh, well, you know, you're pressured. And Harry, wasn't like that. And now he's getting angry. His scar's burning. And what are we told? He leaves. Dumbledore would have believed him. He knew it. But Dumbledore, like Mad Eye, like Sirius, like his parents, like his poor owl, all were gone where Harry could never talk to them again. In other words, what is Harry feeling?
Despair.
Despair. He's all alone. Yeah, he's got Remus and Tonks and the Weasleys and Hermione and that whole group kind of around him, but he feels alone. Why? Because those that he connected to on a deeper level, gone. And then he has his little vision. He finds out Lucius's wand is destroyed. Okay. He tells Hermione about what's happening with Ollivander. Okay, we're going to skip the ghoul in the pajamas, most of it. I want to pick up, it's probably around page 105, 103. Okay. They're talking about the Horcruxes. And they're talking about the locket. And Hermione talks about the book Secrets of the Darkest Art. Okay. What page is that on?
102.
102. And Hermione says it warns in this book how unstable you make the rest of your soul by ripping it. And that's just by making one Horcrux. Ron, can you put yourself back together again? What's Ron thinking of? Humpty Dumpty. It sounds like. Hermione, yeah. But it would be excruciatingly painful. Really? Why? How do you do it? Remorse, says Hermione. You've got to really feel what you've done. Okay? When you leave class, get on the internet or something and look up Psalm 51. I think that's a pretty good example of what that remorse really means. You have to really feel bad for what you've done. Okay? And Hermione says, I don't see Voldemort trying it. Ron, no, says Ron. So how do you destroy Horcruxes? And they go on and talk about it. Okay. And they keep talking, and Hermione tells them a Horcrux is the complete opposite of a human being. Why? Because a Horcrux is an object, okay, that has a fragment of a soul. But a human being is a living thing that is tied with its soul. That is, the soul of a human being is meant to be intact. And a human being without a soul is a carcass. And a soul without a human being is either a ghost or somewhere else. Okay? Hermione says the fragment of soul inside it depends on its container, its enchanted body, for survival. So if I were to turn this iPhone into a Horcrux, all you'd have to do to kill the part of the soul that's in there would be to destroy this. But when you kill a body, you don't destroy a soul. Soul is eternal. Okay? So, Hermione says, while the magical container is still intact, the bit of soul inside it can flit in and out of someone if they get too close to the object. And then she says, I mean close emotionally. Well, why is this going to be important? The locket. Whenever Ron and Harry are wearing that locket, notice they're wearing it next to their skin. So it's right next to the heart. And what happens? They get sassy. Ron's real nature comes out. The fiery redhead. He's angry. He's always fighting. Okay? So they keep talking, and then we get the will of Albus Dumbledore. And Mrs. Weasley gives Harry a watch for his birthday. Traditional wizarding gift. And we're told the watch belonged to whom? Her brother, Fabian Pruitt. And then she says, it's a bit dented on the back. He wasn't very careful with his possessions. Well, why else might it be a bit dented on the back?
Yes. He was killed.
And what did they find of him? I think it was bits, we were told by Moody in book 5. Okay? So the watch might have taken a few hits, in other words. Now you think Harry's going, oh, gee, thanks. The watch of your dead brother. That really means a lot to me. Okay? So, Scrimgeour shows up. And he starts to read the will. Okay? And what does he give Ron? Putter outer, or the deluminator. Okay? And Hermione? Tails of Beetle the Bard. Okay. And Harry? The Snitch and Sword of Godric Gryffindor. So he then asks, so why do you think Dumbledore gave these to you guys? No idea. Okay. And then Scrimgeour tells them a little bit about snitches. Somewhere around 124, 125, 126 maybe. 127. A snitch is not touched by bare skin before it's released, not even by the maker who wears gloves. So what will it do? It will open only for the person who first touches the snitch with their bare hands. The only problem is, if you've watched the films and the Quidditch matches, what does Harry wear? Are they fingerless?
No, the uniform's changed.
But this is the one that he called in the first match.
I only know this because I just went to look at all their stuff and their traveling.
I just remember.
Oh, you went
thing.
into
I
the
just
traveling
saw
thing?
The uniform, yeah. They all had gloves.
Okay, so Harry takes the snitch and nothing happens. And they then start to talk about the sword. And Scrimgeour wants to know, why does Dumbledore want you to have the sword, etc., etc. So if that's 127, somewhere probably around 129. Harry challenges Scrimgeour and says, people are dying. I was nearly one of them. Voldemort chased me across 3 counties. He killed Mad-Eye Moody. But there's been no word about any of that from the Ministry. You expect me to help you? And Scrimgeour comes up, puts his wand tip on Harry's chest, burns a little mark on him. It's time you learn some respect. Harry, it's time you earned it. Show some proper action, in other words. Harry, I don't like your methods, Minister. Remember, and shows him I must not tell lies. Okay? So Harry, Ron, and Hermione go upstairs, and Hermione's thinking, why did I get a book of fairy tales? Ron has no idea what the Deluminator is, or does, or even how it works. And Harry sees handwriting on the snitch. I open at the close. But he doesn't know what it means. Okay? So we get the wedding. And who do we meet early on? At the wedding. Before him. Look at the name. Everybody know what xenophobia is? Fear of aliens, fear of others, fear of outsiders. Okay, so this isn't the fear part. Okay. This is others, aliens. Because if you spell this with an F, like that, it's Latin. And it means son of. But spelled with a PH, it's Greek. And it means love of. Love of others. Love of aliens. Love of outsiders. You could even loosely take Xeno and say, love of what's strange. Pretty much fits the love goods, right? Okay. Love good. Just throw a little article in there. Love the good. Tells us what we need to know about them. They're not afraid of different people. They're not afraid of the oddballs. Largely because they are the oddballs. They're not afraid of thinking outside the box. Right? And so we see him, and he has this odd symbol, which we learn later on what it is. And Harry overhears a conversation and becomes part of a conversation, okay, between, hold on, let me find my place here. Auntie Muriel and Elphias Doge. This is after the wedding vows actually take place. Somewhere around probably 150, 151. Okay. Harry speaking to Elphias Doge, and he asks him about the Rita Skeeter article. And Doge says, don't believe a word of it. Not a word, Harry. Let nothing tarnish your memories of Albus Dumbledore. And then look what the narrator does. The narrator takes us inside Harry's mind. So we know this is what he's really thinking. Harry looked into Doge's earnest, pained face and felt not reassured but frustrated. Did Doge really think it was that easy? That Harry could simply choose not to believe? Okay? It is all about choosing what to believe. This whole book is all about choosing what to believe. Whether Harry will choose to believe Dumbledore or will choose not to believe Dumbledore. And that Dumbledore has taught him. Okay? Didn't Doge understand Harry's need to be sure, to know everything? Well, what's the difference between belief and knowledge? You know 2 + 2 = 4. You, probably individually, believe that there are such things as nuance and gluons. subatomic particles because you've never seen them. They've never been logically proven to you. You believe that the universe is 14.3 billion years old. Okay? Because you've never experienced it for yourself. There are all kinds of beliefs. All right? You might believe in Jesus, you might believe in Buddha, you might believe in Muhammad. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of what I talked about. But you believe something. Harry wants to know. How do you know? Is it merely logic? How do you know that when you leave this class today, you will arrive at wherever it is you're going safely? You don't. None of us do. That is a belief. It is a belief based upon previous experience, however. But it's not a belief based upon fact or knowledge. It's just, well, haven't been killed yet. Okay? Perhaps Doge suspected Harry's feelings, and he starts to think about it. And then Auntie Muriel drains her, takes another large gulp of champagne, belches. Remind you of anybody? And launches into Dumbledore. And notice, after she starts talking, what happens to Harry? A chill that had nothing to do with the iced champagne was stealing through Harry's chest. As Auntie Muriel talks about Dumbledore, Harry's chest gets cold. Why? Because the fire of love is being put out. She is killing the ardor that he has for Dumbledore. Okay? So, skip a couple more pages. Doge is on the verge of tears. Auntie Muriel, wants more champagne. She's just having a ball by creating distress for Doge and for Harry. Okay? And Auntie Muriel says, that her mother was friends with Bathilda Bagshot and such. She drinks more champagne. And again, this is probably somewhere around 153, 155? 157? Man, they get way off. 157. And we're told she swigged yet more champagne. Harry did not know what to think, what to believe. He wanted the truth. What did Dumbledore tell Harry in the first book? The truth? It is a beautiful and dangerous thing. Harry could hardly believe that Dumbledore would not have intervened if such cruelty was happening inside his own house. He could hardly believe it. Doesn't mean he doesn't believe it. Means a little bit of it, he kind of believes. Okay? And what happens? Kingsley's Patronus comes. Harry, Ron, and Hermione disappear. They go off to Tottenham Court Road. And we see the Death Eaters. I'm going to skip all that. Yes, page 28. Harry has an experience where he sees Draco being used by Voldemort, where Draco has to administer punishment to Raoul. This is somewhere around page 172 or so. We're told Harry felt sickened by what he had seen, by the use to which Draco was now being put by Voldemort. What's Harry really thinking or feeling for Draco? Pity. Pity. Do I have the right page? What page is that?
175.
175? Pretty close. Okay. So then we get to Creature's Tale. And we're told, bottom of the first page, the accusations he had heard from Muriel at the wedding seemed to have nested in his brain like diseased things, infecting his memories of the wizard he had idolized. Notice that. Are positive thoughts things that infect? No. Only bad stuff infects. Okay? So these ideas of Muriel's, it's like Harry realizes what they're doing, but he can't deny them. He can't cast them off. And we're told, the next paragraph, at the end, why hadn't Dumbledore told him? What? Why hadn't Dumbledore just offered to Harry, oh, by the way, Harry, when I was about 18 years old, or 19 years old, my best friend and I got in an argument, and he accidentally killed my sister. Why hadn't he explained? Had Dumbledore actually cared about Harry at all? Well, that's a pretty big leap. From talking about Dumbledore's past to, oh, Harry, yes, I do really love you. Or had Harry been nothing more than a tool to be polished and honed, but never trusted or confided in? Well, yeah, that's exactly what he is. He is a sword being polished and pwned. Polished and pwned to kill Voldemort, or polished and honed, if you want to speak English. So, Harry finds the fragment of letter by his mother to Sirius with the picture, but he doesn't find all of it. And he thinks the only useful thing here is the information about Dumbledore. Is that really the only useful thing? No. So what else is useful about this little letter?
It shows his mother's love for him.
Okay, what else? Who was with them for Harry's birthday? Had a very quiet birthday tea, just us and old Bathilda. Oriel was saying was good friends with her mother. Do you really think James and Lily would hang around with somebody who would hang around with anybody like Muriel? If her mother is anything like her? Probably not likely. What else? We find out they're cooped up. And James can't get out. Why not? Because Dumbledore has his invisibility cloak. Okay? So, Harry's starting to talk to Hermione, and he explains, he doesn't know what to think or what. They're around 188, 187. No, take that back. Wrong page. 183. Hermione asks him, Harry, do you really think you'll get the truth from a malicious old woman like Muriel? Or from Rita Skeeter? How can you believe them? 185? Okay. Notice, you're going to believe Rita Skeeter? You're going to believe Muriel, but you're not going to believe what you knew of Dumbledore? How long has he known Muriel?
A couple hours.
A couple hours at most. And what has he seen of her? She's a drunk. She's a bitter, angry, old drunk. What about Rita Skeeter? She's a lying hag. And that's being generous. What does he know about Dumbledore?
He's a kind person.
He's a kind person. He's full of love. He gave his life for Harry. Okay? So here you have it again. Doge is right. How can you let these people tarnish your memories of Dumbledore? There it was again. Choose what to believe. Okay? It's like Rowling is telling her audience, you must do this. Not about Dumbledore, about the world. Choose what to believe. He wanted the truth. But as Dumbledore said, the truth is terrible and beautiful. Because sometimes we say we want the truth, but do we really? No, we'd rather live in our nice little self-made fantasy world. We'd rather think nobody wants to harm us. We'd rather think we can run the Boston Marathon without having any problems. We'd rather think it's safe to get on that airplane and fly wherever. But it isn't always. No, we want the truth. Do we really want the truth? Do we really want to know what all the terror threats are against the United States at any one moment in time? I sure as hell don't, because I probably wouldn't get out of bed. Okay? So they start searching. They realize R.A.B., Regulus Arcturus Black, same initials in the locket. Let's search. Hermione does Oxylocket. No good. Ron, well then how are we supposed to find it? It's like, how is my room supposed to get clean? I mean, Molly's not here to do it for me. Ron, like I tell my kids, get off your butt and clean it. We search manually. This is kind of important because how is Harry going to bury Dobby?
Manually.
Literally, manually, with hand. How do they bury Aragog? Anybody remember? It's transposed with the big mound of dirt, buried, gone. Harry doesn't use any magic when he buries Dobby. Okay? We'll talk about that when we get to it. So, Harry calls Creature, and they talk about why Voldemort would have used Creature and such. And Hermione has to explain to Harry how Creature thinks, and that Regulus was trying to protect them all, meaning the Black family, at almost the end of that chapter. And Hermione finally says, Sirius was horrible to Creature, Harry. No good looking at me like that. You know it's true. This is around page 199, 200. I've said it all along. Wizards would pay for how they treat house elves. Voldemort did, so did Sirius. And notice, Harry had no retort. He has to admit Hermione's right. So what does Harry do? He asks Creature to find Mundungus Fletcher, and he gives him the locket and makes Creature one of his own. Okay, we'll stop there. Thursday. Please don't